Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning. Welcome to the June 15th, 2011 Lorain County Board of Commissioners meeting. We can all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, you already welcomed us to the meeting. If we could all just take a moment and have a moment of silence and prayer for those of you who want to pray for Officer Tom Tomaszewski, his wife and son, Tammy and his son Tommy were killed in an automobile accident, and him and his daughter Danielle are fighting for their survival in the hospital as we speak. So, if you just take a minute for them, please. Thank you. And Ted has our wonderful dog from their dog pound, who's been there for quite a long time. We need to find him a home.
Here, guy. Come on. Sit down there. Come on. Sit down. Good boy. Our featured dog this week is a male lab mix. He's been with us, as Commissioner Koski said, since May 4th. Great disposition. Really likes people. Just a really good dog, make a great house dog. He's 3 to 3.5 years old, and he'll be available for adoption this Saturday at 3 o'clock. So somebody looking for a really good dog, please stop by our kennel. And if he's not your type of dog, we have plenty of others to pick from.
He's really sweet. Calm, very calm.
Madam Clerk?
Under Resolutions Number 1, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
No investments, appropriations.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Travel.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cordez?
Thank you, Commissioner Kalo. I do wish to have a brief executive session with the board to specifically discuss the UAW collective bargaining agreement, children's services, and a collective bargaining agreement with the Sheriff's Department, and ongoing discussions with the United Steelworkers of America at 911. Topics allowable under the Sunshine Law. So I would ask that we go into executive session at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today to have those talks. Thank you.
I do need to be at the collection center at 12:30 for the 10,000th car.
10,000.
10,000th car.
We'll get you out.
You arranged someone to be there at 12:30?
Well, on or about 12:30, the 10,000th car should be coming through.
Yeah, I wasn't going to challenge on that, but you knew exactly what time the
Well,
call was
that's
going
because
through.
your wonderful assistant told me I needed to be there around that time.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So Mama Kakowski's not coming?
No, there is no such, well, there is such a thing, but no.
Authorize payment of $1,000 to Dovin Funeral Home, Lorain, for indigent veteran Carl Koke, Lorain in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 590126.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Approve and enter an agreement with Envision to provide prescription services effective July 1st, 2011 for a 3-year period with a projected savings of $1,441,038.
So moved.
Second.
Mr.
Discussion.
Cordez? You want to elaborate on the Envision contract?
I can, if you'd like. It's actually pretty exciting for us. Looks like we're going to have some substantial savings. We've been working on this for a number of months and applying formulary overlays to the group usage on prescription drugs and doing geo-zip code overlays to see where most of the prescribing was going on and being filled at what locations. And by tightening down on a few of those things and having a company that's willing to work with us to strategically offer discounts in a tighter network, we're able to achieve greater savings. So this is what we came up with after several months. It's a real achievement over our prior contract, and hopefully we'll see those savings. Again, those are, I like the word projected savings. The usage and the cost of drugs are a driving factor. We've seen considerable cost increase, like everybody else has in prescription drugs, and we've also seen an increase in usage over the last decade. But this is the best we could do, and it's supposed to be about a $1.4 million savings over our current contract, what we'd be paying if we continued our current contract. There's going to be some tightening on some issues, but in these days, as long as you're still provided with a benefit, that's what's important. There'll be a somewhat less of a broad network, and the formulary will be a little tighter, but everybody's going to be provided with a good outcome, and we'll still be able to save money for the plan and hold costs down for the employer and the employees.
Thank you.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under Children and Family, amend Resolution 10-239 adopted April 7, 2010, approved Children's Trust Fund contracts for fiscal year 11. Said amendment is to reflect Blessing Housing from $23,433 to $27,765, and Elyria City Health District from $18,240 to $13,908, effective until June 30, 2011.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under Community Development, published notice in non-legal section of the Journal on June 24th to fulfill the requirements of the Environmental Review Record for Neighborhood Stabilization Program 3.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Under Job and Family, authorized purchase service contract with Information Technologies and Training, Norwalk, to provide Microsoft Access programming and staff training in the amount of $10,000, effective July 1st, 2011 through June 30th, 2012, and authorized director to execute an amendment for change in programming content and increases approval to prosecutor's form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Approve various amendments in state fiscal year 11 vendor agreements. Resolution 10450 adopted June 30, 2010, Common Ground Overland. Amendment reflects end date of first step from June 30th to September 30th, an increased value of $37,500. Resolution 10670 adopted September 22nd, 2010, Nord Center, Lorain. Amendment reflects end date of career corridors from June 30th to September 30th, an increased value of $25,000. Resolution 10671 adopted September 22nd, Vocational Guidance Services Elyria. Amendment reflects end date of work from June 30th to September 30th, an increased value of $25,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Workforce Development, amend Resolution 10654 adopted September 15, 2010, approving and entering a purchase service contract with the Workforce Institute for the purchase of one-stop service coordinator, effective retroactive July 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2011. Said amendment reflects an increase in funding in the amount of $316,723 due to waiting list reduction, administrative fund, and unspent adult and dislocated worker layoff aversion funds.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Approve and enter in a purchase service contract with Workforce Institute for the purchase of one-stop service coordinator, effective July 1st, 2011 through June 30, 2012, and contains a 30-day cancellation clause in the amount of $1,720,016.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Cortez, do you want to elaborate on these two items?
The
Workforce?
The first one has to do with funds that we reserved for our Project 10. Train employees now, and
We reserved the money, we didn't spend it all?
we did not spend it all.
Okay.
We had it set aside for the incumbent worker training and layoff aversion funds. We had it. We converted those funds for that purpose. We're able to convert them back, but we have to encumber them before July 1st, or we'll be over our 20% carryover on our roll on our federal dollars. That normally would not cause us a problem. But with these tight fiscal times, we're afraid that the state may take a look and say you're rolling more than 20%, and they may reach in and want some of those funds back. And we really do need them here, so we converted them back to dislocated worker funds, and then we've encumbered them with the employment network so that they can be provided for TAs and training opportunities for the residents of Lorain County. The second agenda item is our contract with the Workforce Institute that runs the employment network. They've been our employment network operator for well over a decade, and they provide the specific guidance and vendor services on the deck plate to the residents of Lorain County in conjunction with a dozen other one-stop partners located at the One Stop on 254 adjacent to the Department of Job and Family Services. These funds will be used for OJTs, individual training accounts, technical schools, and other sundry assistance that can be provided for workers to either re-enter them into the workplace or retrain them for entry into the workplace. And that's what those two issues are for.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Amendment Resolution 10884 adopted December 15, 2010, approving and entering an MOU between the Board of Commissioners, Lorain County Workforce Investment Board, and the Employment Network Partners to identify and coordinate a variety of workforce development resources to create a seamless, integrated system that addresses the needs of employers and job seekers by offering a variety of education, job training, human services, and other workforce development services to residents of the region. Said amendment is to reflect an extension for additional quarter July 2011 through September 2011 with an additional quarter cost of $72,860.25.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry, where did that money come from?
All of these funds
Federal.
originate with federal
Federal,
dollars
right.
vis-a-vis the
Federal.
state.
Okay.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Under the engineer award bid to Jugco Company, Elyria, in the amount of $44,067.50 for signed materials for the highway garage. 4 bids were received on June 6th. The low bidder did not submit affidavit or bid bond, therefore is rejected. And to be paid by a grant from Ohio Department of Public Safety, and balance will be paid for the MVGT supplies material account. The estimate was $62,500.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Approve and enter in a contract with Youthix Inc., Cleveland, in the amount of $114,732 to provide engineering services for rehab of Chamberlain Road Bridge over Salt Creek, Grafton Township, and this will be paid from the engineer's project account. Authorize engineer to execute all necessary documents on approval of prosecutors
To form.
to form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Peggy, do we need to do those Title 20 this week, or can that wait until next
No,
week?
They're next week's.
Next week? Okay, I just saw it got kicked out of the email and
Next week.
had it sitting in front of me. One quick issue, Commissioners, on number 11, if you could modify that to authorize me to sign that contract so I can get it out today, I would appreciate that. We have a short window because we're going to be changing providers, and I want to get that done, so I want to get the company engaged right away.
I'll amend my motion to allow the county administrator to execute the contract.
And I'll second. And just for the record, there is no increase in co-pays or anything like that for the prescription coverage. All
Correct.
that stays exactly the same.
Everything's the same.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
And other than my sympathies and condolences to the Tomaszewski family, that's all I have this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor.
Commissioners, I would like to request, I have one matter of pending court action and one of imminent court action that I would like to discuss with the Commissioners in executive session. And other than that, Prosecutor Will is here. I know he has a matter he wanted to address the board regarding.
Prosecutor?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
We submitted a request for a resolution from the commissioners supporting our submission of our VOCA grant. And that's been something that's been historically done over the last 7 years since I've been here. It was in place before I got here. Those are federal funds which require a match from the county, and the match is approximately $26,000. I wanted to make sure there was no questions on that, or if you did have questions, I would answer them, because we are required to submit that resolution with our grant, which we've already submitted. This is simply the last piece of it by next Friday. If we don't get it in, we lose it. The portion of the grant we get from the federal government is approximately $75,000, and it makes up that along with our VAWA grant. VOCA is Victims Against Crime, VAWA is Violence Against Women. Those two together and the match from the county and our in-kind match to the VAWA grant make up 84% of our budget for our victim witness people. We are required by statute to perform certain functions for victims of crime, and these are the people that perform them. Without them, we will not be able to meet many of our statutory requirements. And so I wanted to make sure that if there was no understanding about that, I know it's something maybe that was perfunctory sent through, but we need that, be able to put that on your agenda and have that resolution for next week so I can overnight it down to Columbus by next Friday.
I had asked Prosecutor Will to basically send supporting documents and or come up and explain the process. It's something we do every year because, again, to meet the mandates statutorily. But I thought maybe, especially in your case, Tom, you haven't been here before on where this goes and why we need to do the match. So I don't have a problem doing a resolution now for the
It's 26,000, right?
in change.
It is
I left mine on my desk. I brought all the other stuff.
$25,126.
Okay.
And that's
And-
the 25% match to the VOCA grant.
So we'll, in all in, we'll have a little over $100,000 to work with that $25,000 match.
Well, on that grant, but there's another grant, the VAWA grant, which is approximately another $47,000. So total, we get $150,000 with the
Okay.
two grants and the match, and that's what funds 84% of our division of victim witness.
And it is a mandated service, so it's not,
Well, it's not
I mean-
mandated we have victim witness advocates, it's mandated we perform certain services.
Correct.
The people that perform those for us are the victim witness advocates, as they are in most prosecutors' offices. So it allows us to perform what we're statutorily required to do,
okay.
okay?
Yeah, no, with the program, I understand that. My only question is, where do you get the money?
Well, let me-
And
I-
that-
No,
unless
no,
you got
I
money.
think I can answer that right
Okay.
now. This grant runs from September to October, okay? We receive periodic infusions of cash from the state. We send them an invoice, they send us. I believe we have $47,000 in this account right now. We may not need any money till after the first of the year. Traditionally, you pass this resolution, and I think the financial people, the fiscal people, like it to be put in right away. That's not necessarily needed right now. And short of unless the state just quits sending us the money that we invoiced them for, we should be able to make it through the rest of the year.
Right, there's gonna be another 63,000 yet coming, correct?
Correct.
Approximately was the numbers you had given us?
Correct. They owe us about 46,000. We need 63,000 to get through the rest of the year, and we have 47,000 on hand.
Oh, okay.
So there's no immediate requirement of that money to go in. It's been traditionally done in October, only because that's when the grant begins. That's when that fiscal year runs, and I think the fiscal people from the county like it done that way. At least that's my understanding. So,
Great answer.
well, it's an obligation. It's gotta be there sooner or later. So,
It's hard to turn down match money with that, that significant,
Well, yeah,
regardless
I
of where
mean-
the money's coming from, you have to find it.
And it's statutorily required to perform the service.
Right.
Uh-oh, we have another guest coming up now.
Uh-oh, hope she's not wanting money too.
Oh, yes, she is. Yeah, she's the match to a DR court. That's why I got
Our
it written
Voices
down.
for Children program is in
Right.
the same position, and we sent you a letter as well. And we were asking that the resolution go on either today or next week for the same reason. It's about $10,000 that we would need for the juvenile court.
I had you under my report to bring up next after Dennis will, because I know there are matching type programs going through the systems.
And that
Exactly.
10,000
And
grant brings in how much money for your department?
It's $46,000.
And you have funds also that will cover the $10,000 or 11?
We were in the same position that
Okay.
the program doesn't begin until October. It runs from October to September 30th again, so we still have some money in there, and then that would need to be taken care of after that.
Right.
But it's a worthwhile program. It's a program that we have a coordinator that trains volunteers that actually come in and provide services for the children. So even though it's only maybe $46,000, we get a lot more services for that because that's where our volunteers come in. And we train them, and they do that for free. And they look at every case that a child that's abused that comes before the court. They look at all the circumstances and all the services that are provided, and then can be a voice just for that child, not for the parent, not for the court, but that's looking out just for that child.
Statutorily required services.
Absolutely.
Correct. Okay, well, we got one motion on the floor for the resolution for the prosecutor's office, and it's been seconded, correct?
No.
I thought Commissioner Kukowski seconded.
Second?
She did now.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I just want, and again, just to clarify for,
No,
Going
wrong
through
one.
this-
This is Dennis Wills right now. You got
Yeah.
domestic.
okay, actually,
You
you
gotta
guys
wait for the
can,
next one.
well, it's just discussion. It's with Dennis as well, and it's
Oh,
gonna
okay,
carry
all right.
over to domestic. It doesn't come out of the general fund, correct?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it's still a general fund
It's still a
expenditure.
general
It's still a general fund expenditure, correct. They need a resolution that we will support the match money based on them receiving the grant.
Right.
Correct.
But it is a
And that-
leverage of those dollars. So for every dollar we put in, we get more than 25.
I understand that there's other departments as well that could do the same thing. It's not mandated by the state, but I understand what you're saying, Dennis, that we won't have to pay this bill basically until the end of the year or the beginning of the next year. This is for the commissioners now. We're still looking at a deficit next year.
Mhm.
When are we going to get back to talking about doing the mandatory cuts in order to get into that deficit?
I'm gonna talk about a couple things I got in my report.
Okay.
I actually met with the budget director this morning. I talked to Commissioner Kukowski. Your door was closed, so I thought you were in meeting, so I didn't get a chance
Yeah.
to talk to you.
Okay.
Anything
Just-
further?
No.
Just one other comment. We used to have 5 people in victim witness division. We now have 3. So we've been cutting back in order to try to address the issues of the budget problems. So we're reducing people, and this is kind of like the only way for us to fund this division. So,
And I don't have the necessary paperwork in front of me, but I believe we're approving 2 steps to that grant. One for the $10,000, or $10,265, is that correct?
No, that would be the DR one.
DR one.
Right, that's second. I got
Okay.
the resolution
I
on the
thought
floor
Dennis
right now
had
for
two.
Dennis Wills.
Didn't you have
right,
two?
but you're only acting on one
One.
right now. The other one
We're
comes
doing the
up in
VOCA
May,
today.
and it's already been taken care of.
Okay.
Okay. Well, could we go through and actually just postpone the vote until after we get your report on what you talked with the budget director on? I'd like to hear what you have to say about the budget.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
I'll
a
hold
motion
it then.
second. I
We
can
can
take the
hold-
roll call and.
We could
or
just
you
wait.
can-
We could just hold it until after
We'll vote on it
discussions.
after the report.
Yeah.
How's that sound? Okay,
Yeah.
just
Sounds
hold
great.
that
Withdraw
motion.
your
Withdraw my
motion.
motion. Withdraw your second.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, Jerry? No? Commissioners report.
We have a young lady in the audience. Her name is Julie Wilmer, and she'd like to give a little presentation about an amateur radio event that's coming up on June 25th. If you want to just come up to this podium over here, Julie, and you can tell us all about Amateur Radio Ham Operator Day.
Good morning. I am Julie Wilmer, and I am an amateur radio operator, and my family has had a long history of ham radio. I, as a young child, sat with my grandfather as he communicated with people around the world and in the county and in the country, and learned a great deal from him. But it is very much a family-friendly activity. In my particular club that I belong to, we have both men and women, children, we have some young adults, we have high school and junior high and college students who are also ham radio operators. And amateur radio truly benefits our community and our county, both locally and internationally, in terms of disaster response, providing communications when things like cell phones no longer work, telephones no longer work. In Joplin, Missouri, hams were there to provide assistance with Red Cross and things. And to prepare for that, hams do a lot of things both locally as practice. I personally have been involved with the Elyria Special Olympics, assisting in communications at those events. We also have what we call Field Day, which is a large-scale practice throughout our country. And June 25th this year has been proclaimed Amateur Radio Day by Governor John Kasich. And this proclamation honors thousands of amateur radio operators who provide valuable public assistance through emergency communications on both local, statewide, and national and international basis in times of need. Again, on June 25th and 26th, Ohio amateurs, or hams, will take part in Field Day emergency preparedness exercises, again with thousands of others across the United States. This involves setting up and operating amateur radio stations, using emergency power and simulated emergency communication conditions. Once those stations are operative, amateurs compete with similar stations across the country, and it's at the end of Amateur Radio Week, which is sponsored by our Association for Amateur Radio called the American Radio Relay League. Field Day is part of our long tradition of providing service in emergency communications. We use new digital technologies, satellite capabilities, voice, and even still use Morse code. Hams continue all over the United States. We'll be holding these public demonstrations of our emergency communication skills. They, again, provide valuable assistance during disasters like Katrina, 9/11, and just local disasters as well. Our governor's proclamation recognizes the importance of amateur radio operators' role in preparing for public service and emergency communications, and acknowledges that radio amateurs donate their personal time, equipment, and expertise to this service. Throughout Lorain County, amateur radio clubs will be conducting their 2011 Field Day exercises at various locations beginning the afternoon of June 25th. And the public is invited to attend any one of these sites. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in and explaining that for us. I think I'm going to yield and let's just discuss the information that you got from our Budget Director Lisa this morning, and have an opportunity to hear all of it. But yeah, you want to come up, Lisa, and answer questions?
You want me to go into my report?
Yeah, yeah.
That's okay. Give me just a second, Lisa, before we
Sure.
go there. Just some background on what's going on. I was in Columbus on Thursday with the State Commissioners Association, getting an update on budget issues going forward. Senator Seitz has sent through some amendments to House Bill 153 on changing some of the local government fund structure. It doesn't affect Lorain County necessarily because we're already at the 30% allocation, but I did get some numbers that were a little bit different than ours. So I wanted to discuss that because we are going into the first half of 2012 state budget, even though it's our calendar year, and I'm meeting with Lisa. Our numbers have peaked up some in regards to local government fund and sales tax, but we were going over the expenditures this morning. What we budgeted, we had the leftover carryover from where we split in the criminal justice sales tax, and I had a little bit of discussion with Jerry the other night at the Farm Bureau policy dinner, and talking about issues we had going forward, and Captain Drozdowski spoke in regards to the Sheriff's Department, so I thought this sort of like brings us all together. Lisa, based on the numbers we've been looking at, our anticipated revenue for 2012, our calendar year, is approximately $42 million. Is that what the current number is the Budget Commission and the Auditor's Office has come up with?
That will be passed when we do the tax budget. What was submitted on the budget packages for 2012 was about $41.3 million revenue, estimated revenue for next year.
Okay. And then working off of this year's numbers, we've seen an uptick in the local government fund from what we had put into our estimated revenue. We had estimated $3.5 million.
Right.
And we're up to 4.3.
We're guessing it'll probably come in between 4.2 and 4.3 this year.
Okay, so we have an $800,000 uptick there.
Yeah, I shouldn't say guessing, we're estimating. not
Estimating, yeah,
guessing.
not guessing, we're estimating. And the reason we have to estimate, so everyone's aware, we don't know what those numbers are actually going to be until they actually get to us. So
Correct.
it's based on the experience of our budget office and the auditor's office on what we're gonna have for dollars coming in to operate. We also used about, $6.5 million in this year's expenditures off of what was the carryover from the criminal justice sales tax from 2 years ago, which was approximately $6.5 million.
It was about 6.8 we budgeted in criminal justice.
And after looking at the numbers, we're looking at our expected expenditures for 2012, somewhere around 53.5 to 54 million. Was that our best guess?
Yes, and running those numbers pretty quickly this morning. that
Yeah,
was-
I'm sorry. Like I said, I got this from the state and I was trying to work through it.
No, oh, no, that's fine.
And I apologize again to Pat Metzger, our community development person was in there and I had to ask him for her time. But going into 2012, based on the cuts in the local government fund, basically the 50% over the 2-year budget, we're probably going to be down somewhere in the area after carryovers and best guess is $4.5 to $5 million going into 2012's calendar year for the county.
Yes,
Okay, so that gets to the
At
point, so we
least,
got to figure
at
out.
least.
At least. So that goes into town, what you were starting to bring up, so I wanted to bring that, so we can go
Right.
discussions from there. If we're looking at approximately a $4.5 million, not knowing again what the carryover's gonna be at the end of the year, Jim, and we're gonna need you on this conversation, because you have some preliminary
Well-
ideas of where we'll be.
Well, you know, we've been, every time we've seen cost savings or reductions or a slight change in revenues that were on the positive side, we've been moving the money into our rainy day fund, preparing for a very difficult year going into 2012. So the carryover, while it may look sizable, it's because of all the departments out here that have been stretching their resources, and we've been able to accumulate some funds. And one of the good areas is every time the sales tax goes up, the jail sales tax goes up, so that's less reliance on us. We had initially parked a considerable amount of money in that fund to support the additional needs at the jail, which I wouldn't call it drastically decreasing. They decrease each time we get the sales tax report, which allows more of that funds in those to be freed up. I'm not sure how much we have there. How much of that fund is committed for the jail? Do you remember?
$300,000.
$300,000. Most of the other funds are savings funds that we'll be able to use to offset some of the cuts that are projected for 2012. So I think the carryover should be about $5 million.
Okay, so $5 million on top of an estimated $42 to $43 million revenue still puts us in the $48 million roughly.
Right.
Of estimated
And mindful
expenditures for
sales
next year.
tax is still showing a slight increase each time we see the report, but the interest income is down significantly. So that's being offset. Our revenues are still off around $5 million from 2008 to 2011. But the driving factor now isn't sales tax any longer. Sales tax is I expect by the fall, unless we see another dip in the economy, I expect that to be par by the end of 2011 with where we were at our last year where we didn't see any decreases, which was 2008. The interest income is nowhere near recovering, and it's going to take several years before we see a recovery to, if ever, to the years we were getting $6 million plus in interest income.
Eight.
Well, I said $6 million
There
plus
was
eight.
8-1.
We're down to slightly over $1 million.
Is it $1.8 million this year?
Dan actually dropped his to 1.5 for this year.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then next year, he estimated 1.5 as well.
Well, we're on a yield curve, so it's fairly predictable. We're at the bottom of the yield curve now. When the markets start upticking, it'll take a couple of years to catch the curve again. So that's where that's come in, and the fees in certain areas are certainly still down. Those things can improve more quickly than the interest yield curve can, but that's not as predictable as the interest yield curve. So we still have a considerable gap in expenditures and available cash and revenues.
Thank you. Also tying into that, not only with the state report on where happening to our dollars, and the state Senate's actually trying to add another $50 million to $100 million to local government fund distribution. They're going into conference, I believe, today which is the House and the state Senate meet to work out the differences in the bills that have been proposed, which wouldn't be a whole lot for us. I mean, a couple $100,000, but we'll take anything at this point. Also, I attended the Lorain County Farm Bureau Policy Dinner, and Jerry, we can probably chime in together there. The discussions they had anywhere with the Sheriff's Department and the lack of road patrols, where the townships are hoping to work something out to help us out, and Draws isn't here today. But again, the mandated services we have to provide. Soil and water spoke John Bourne. I sat at the table with John Bourne, Greg Holcomb from Congresswoman Sutton's office, Beth Thames from Senator Sherrod Brown, Corin Burr, one of our larger farmers, who says he can't believe we got $138 an acre for farming at the airport. He lives right across it, and he didn't bid on it. He said it was too much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And then, you know, the issues the farmers are having this year with the weather. But John Bourne explained how much soil and water, which is non-mandated, but still gets their funding from the Board of County Commissioners. Right. And the funding they receive from the state is a match based on what we give them, and we've cut them severely, 55 or 60% the last few years. They've got their people down to 32-hour work weeks, paying half of their benefits, still trying to do the job. So, I mean, I brought this up through the year. It's been talked about. Commissioner Williams made a suggestion a month or so ago.
Down to 2 people.
Huh?
Down to 2 people.
Down to 2 people. Oh, down to 2 people. Okay, I'm sorry, Nancy. Yeah. Okay. And that's throughout the county. Everybody's taking cuts. Dennis Will got rid of 2 people just in one department when it comes to the victim services. But we had talked about the need for a sales tax and trying to get us through the next couple of years in light of the State House's budget and the governor's budget cutting us. And Commissioner Williams said he actually entertained even a 0.25% temporary, which at this point, just to get us through the next few years, because we are doing the cost cutting. We've cut about $500,000 this year through the board. But then we got the veterans budget, which we're going to talk about next week. They've asked for almost a $500,000 increase. So that wipes out the previous cuts that were made. We are getting to a timeline. Jerry, you can probably help me out with the timeline on sales tax hearings and such, because we would have to go through that one more time, and it has to be, we have to advertise, hold the public hearings, and get it to the tax.
We don't have to get it to tax commissioner, but we have to have it done by July 27th.
July
At least I'd like to
27th.
have it done by July 27th.
Okay.
You give a week in between. But
So I don't know if we can have discussion about that here, sitting as a board. We want to entertain that, Jerry, but if you want to give us some, what we would have to do.
Well, you would have to, since this is putting it on the ballot, you don't have to get it to the tax
Okay.
until afterwards. So that saves us 90 days, but still with the,
Still with the Board of Elections,
because there's
so-
been a substantial gap in the hearings and the numbers might have changed, we would have to conduct those 2 hearings, and I think that something like a 60-day period.
you
I've-
mean from the previous ones?
No, well, the times
Oh,
span I gave you, Teresa.
yeah, I don't have it.
Well, the
in front
numbers
of me right
definitely
now,
would change
but-
because we were going for 0.5% before, and now we're talking about a possible quarter. So,
Right,
yeah, the
but
numbers
just-
would
just-
be.
options.
Just
We
our
did 6
budget
options.
number.
Did we do a
right.
quarter?
We did a quarter also.
Temporary?
We didn't do any temporary
No.
at all, but Tom had brought that up, so I'm reintroducing it as a possibility of doing those type of hearings. But I think we have to address this situation somehow, and we had said we weren't going to impose, we would give it to the voters, but I think when they see what the budget cuts are that we're taking, on top of what we've done, and then whatever additional ones we have to do. I said we're looking at a $400,000 savings, hopefully, once we get the 911 and sheriff's dispatch put together. You know, it's gonna shortfall us, but the next couple of years with a 50% local government fund cut, I don't know how we're gonna make up those shortfalls.
Well, just like any tax levy, it's like August 4th or something like that that we
Oh, you
would
mean
have to.
the deadline is
Yeah.
August 10th.
August 10th,
So I
okay.
mean, you have till August 10th realistically, but we
But
always
you
take
have
it
to have,
down
you have to have
one
hearings.
week,
and-
2 weeks prior, just in case anything else we need before that.
And I don't know the pleasure of the board, but I figured I'd bring it up on my discussion, especially in light of the numbers we received and what they're working out, so. Commissioners?
I don't see a problem with having hearings and talking about the issue, because I think the public needs to be aware of what is happening in their own county. But, you know, seeing how badly it got defeated the last 2 times, if we do put it on the ballot and it's defeated again, we have to have a plan B, and the plan B would be cuts.
Correct.
And they need to know what those cuts are going to be, you know, how it's going to affect them if the sales tax does not pass.
Right, I think we have to do that process concurrently. Then we can
Right.
start with the proposed cuts.
And like you had
Next week.
mentioned, you know, we had done a 5% cut across the board, except for the sheriff's department. And that was a $400,000 cut that we had made. And then, like Ted said, now the Veteran Services are asking for $500,000 more next year, which eliminates that cut. And then we just today, hopefully we're going to save how much in our insurance premium?
but don't-
About $400,000 or $500,000 a year.
Well, I don't want to mislead that number, because the general fund represents probably
Oh,
about
that's
a
true.
third of the expenditures, and overall, medical represents about 25% of the expenditures from that. And of course, we have an annual, the rates go up every year, the prices are going up every year. So your actual savings, we may not see an increase in the prescription drug costs for a year or two,
Right.
but we're not going to really have any tangible funds. And I need to point out that you said 5% cuts. The Commissioner's Department took 10% cuts.
That's right. 5% across the board, except for the commissioners, took 10 to hopefully lead the way, which that didn't work out very well. But one thing that I think is very important to note, and that is anytime a community is trying to pass a tax, what they usually do is they target what scares people, and that is their safety forces. You know, they'll lay off police and fire all day long to try to get somebody to pass a sales tax. And in the midst of all these economic hard times, we've tried our best to not cut the sheriff's department, to cut the sheriff's less than we cut everybody else, put 2 road patrols on through solid waste grants, and now, you know, reworking our 911 and dispatch to add another 2 deputies on the road. So I think this board has shown that we care more about safety in this community than anything else, and we won't use them as a tool to get a tax passed. And I think that's very important to note. We have to look at Plan B, you know, in case the sales tax doesn't pass, because, you know, people see tax and they're just going to say no, you know. But I think and two, I think it's preliminary to know exactly what we're looking at until the state decides what they're going to do. You know,
Well, I think we're going to be close based on what the amendment is, with Seitz's amendment, and what Senator Manning spoke about, and what the House is doing. It's going to be somewhere in the middle on negotiations. So I don't think we're too far off. You know, $100,000 here. It's not going to be. Our numbers are about where our numbers are going to be. Nobody's coming in to save us. The Senate didn't come up with this big thing, you know, reinstate local government funds. So I think our numbers are pretty close now, which is what I've been asking. Just give us a number, something we can work with. And as you said, Commissioner, I think working concurrently, if we're going to have the hearings, that we do it along with the cuts that are going to be made to get to that number.
Mm-hmm. We've been waiting for that to happen for so long that we've kind of lost track of our numbers there for a little while, but we've been seeing progress, which is good, and I'm an optimist. I always believe that things are going to get better, and I do like the option of having the temporary sales tax, more so than a permanent sales tax, because I think we need to prove ourselves over and over again to make sure that we're spending our money efficiently and effectively. So I'll let you speak on it, Tom, see what you
Well,
think.
one thing I would like to get is actually the numbers that you're talking about, Lisa. We talked before regarding the budget. We thought it was going to be between 39 and 41. It's just over 41 million for the projected revenue. At what, 41.3 million?
Right, that was based on the 2012 budget packages that were returned by the departments.
And then we're looking at between 4.5 and 5 million carryover for this year.
At least that.
And with the same budget as 2011 of 49.7 million, correct?
Right. I'm sorry, what did you say, Commissioner? 40?
49.7 million for the general budget for this year.
48.8.
For this year? I guess I'm looking at a sheet here. It's got 49.
That was the original budget at
Okay.
the beginning of the year.
What
Before
is
we
it?
made the cuts?
Before any
48
cuts
what?
or anything were made.
48,810.
And so 45 point, basically looking at a $3 million deficit just off the numbers you're giving me, 48.8.
No,
Well,
you're not accounting the criminal justice money that is separate, that will have to become a general fund expenditure next year for the sheriff's department and the county prosecutor. That money was under the criminal justice account, so it wasn't a general fund expenditure that in the past had been because we had segregated the dollars.
Okay. And what is the cost on that?
6.5
6.5.
million. Right?
Approximately, yeah.
Approximately.
So it's gonna 48.8 plus 6.5. Now you're looking at 3, so 9.5 million. 0.25% sales tax increase brings in $6 to $8 million. So you're still looking at a 1.5 deficit.
No, you don't have that because you don't have the increased carryover. That's why we're saying the shortfalls between 5 and 6 would be the good guess.
Oh.
Even adding that number in there.
I think that carryover, I mean, it, like I said, it's middle of June.
Right.
A lot can
Right.
happen between now and then. It could be a little bit on the low side.
Well, you said the revenue is 41.3 million.
41.3.
41.3 plus the carryover 4.5.
But also we've had an uptick, so they will raise the certificate.
Right,
The
and they
amount
have
of-
not done that yet.
Right, but it will be
Okay.
going up based on local government funds being up about 700,000. What we
But
did,
then
Tom,
cut
in the
next
budget
year.
last year, you weren't in the budget last year, we had to do that before you got here. We only budgeted $3.5 million in local government fund from the
Okay.
state to the county. There was an uptick in state dollars, and what they do is we get a percentage of that. So we're up to about 4.33 million. Correct? Was that the number I had this morning? You and I were going through so many pages.
I'm
About
still doing it.
4.3 million, so that's an 800,000 uptick. Jim, you want to jump
You,
in?
you had predicted a larger cut
Correct.
in local government funds based upon the administrative change that we knew was going to take place and some of the things that were being discussed at the state. So the revenue didn't actually increase. It was the expectation of a decrease
Right.
that
Correct.
didn't go as low as we originally predicted.
Right.
So that gave us some positive room for movement on those funds.
Okay. Well,
Well
one
said.
thing I would like to do is actually get a spreadsheet in front of me with the actual correct numbers, Lisa, if that's possible. And then go through, take a look at it. We do have the performance audits. I think we're going to be selected by the state that we can take a look at as well if we want to go through and have that done. Possibility that we could look at is putting in the March primary for the sales tax. That way we have a presidential election. We'll have more people here and give more voters the opportunity to decide if they want to go through and
I believe, not to interrupt you, I check with Jerry Ennis, doesn't a sales tax countywide have to be on the general, or can it be on the primary also?
it has to be on the
It
general.
can be on the general. They've always in the past been Novembers.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, if we could get the numbers,
I'll
take a
get
look at
something
it,
together for
and
you.
then, instead of going through and having you tell us different numbers, have it in black and white so we can talk about this next week.
Okay.
And they'll change again after that, Tom.
Yeah, I know, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
As long as it's up for discussion, like I said, we're getting closer, we're gonna discuss any of that. Now that the state is getting, finalizing approximately the numbers we're gonna be at, I think there's gotta be some discussion here as responsible fiscal officers, so. That's the end of my report. Oh, by the way, I wanna thank Mayor Grace. We're taking care of Griswold Road, Engineer Carney and his staff, but our staff found a big blockage at Griswold and Leona, a 42-inch, and they think it's an air conditioner stuffed in it.
Oh,
So it's
no.
blocking the stormwater, which is causing a lot of the flooding. Now we have additional outflow coming off of the railroad tracks on Griswold Road, so
An air conditioner?
that's what they think it is, yes. That's what they told me when I was out on Griswold yesterday, so. So thank Mayor Grace too for getting his staff on that today.
I just have one thing, go back to if we're gonna do the sales tax, I mean, today's the 15th, we're gonna have to have those sales tax hearings. We only have basically a month left. So you have to have them 2 weeks in apart, 3 weeks, Jerry?
Yeah.
So
I was just
we
going,
need to
if you're going to
decide
think about doing something,
by next
you know,
week.
next
Next week
week,
would
do
be
you
good.
want us to prepare some tentative resolutions for you to consider?
Yeah, I think that would be fair to do. I would like the reporters here to actually let the taxpayers know that we're going to be considering this next week. And
But
if they-
we won't be all we're doing is making
Hearings.
a decision to consider it.
Right, just to look at the
But
proposals.
when
and
you
for
pass, these are very detailed
Right.
resolutions that you have to have worded correctly in the beginning, so would you be looking to doing the same kind of thing, the criminal justice one? It would just be either a quarter and a half, and it might not be a permanent thing like we did. Okay.
I would think criminal justice, at least then you have dedicated dollars to the sheriff's department prosecutors.
Okay, just that we'll,
And work on a temporary one and a permanent one? Have them
Yes.
both ready?
Correct. That's my suggestion.
Yeah.
The board has to agree or not agree.
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
won't
wanted
go
to do
for-
something,
Yeah, I
so-
won't go for a permanent one. I'll state that now.
okay, just that we have to have those ready should you pass them, and we have to have very precise language, so.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry,
And,
but I just wanna-
No, that's fine. Thank you,
That's good.
Teresa. That's why you're the clerk.
Jerry, without going into all the details, we had a conversation regarding some tax issues.
The inside millage?
Right. Have you had a chance to take a look at that?
Okay, yes. Commissioner asked if it is possible to reduce the inside millage, and yes, it is. It doesn't work exactly. The discussion when you have regular tax levies, the commissioners or any taxing authority has the right to, in essence, waive collection of that for a year or 2 years or something. And the commissioner was asking if we can do that with inside millage. It works a little bit differently in that you don't really waive collection, you just reduce the millage.
Don't collect it, basically.
Right.
I'll go
There are,
to
yeah.
There's a copy, yeah.
Commissioner asked, can we do that for a series of years in advance? And you technically could pass a resolution saying we're reducing the inside millage for so many years, but I do not believe that you could tie a future board's ability each year to go back and ask that the inside millage be reinstated every year.
I believe, though, that if we don't take the inside millage, because it's proportionate to everybody else, that somebody else could invade
Right.
our inside
That's
millage.
what I
There's,
was thinking too.
there's the
Right.
key problem. Once you give it up,
Somebody else will take it.
it's not like you can hold it. Somebody else could come out and grab it.
Very
So-
easily,
Right.
very easily.
So that's
Yes,
right.
they will.
That's the problem with, so you can't waive the collection. You would have to give up the inside millage, and if you did that, then we would.
Let me clarify
Serious-
for other people that know what we're talking
Okay.
about then. What I asked Mr. Ennis to do is take a look on the property tax, see if we could actually reduce the inside millage for property taxes not collected. It's about $8.2 million, and replace that with the sales tax, which could generate the same type of revenue, therefore giving a reduction in taxes to property owners and make it a more consumable tax. Just early talks on it, and just asking him about the details with the inside millage, how that would work. I know the schools would go after it, and the cities would go after it as well. So the question to him was, well, is there a way that we could hold on to the inside millage and prevent them from taking it without collecting it? And what it sounds like is we would have to have a resolution saying that we wouldn't take the millage and
Our portion.
our portion of it, the county, and then give that back to the taxpayers. It generates roughly about $19 per $100,000 on a property, just rough numbers right now. So just something I was looking at, and I just wanted to get his thoughts on it. I felt I would bring it up here just so everyone knew what I was
And it
looking
would
at.
generate how much money in total? Would it be the same amount as we would need for the sales tax, like a quarter?
No, you'd have to go to a half then.
You would
make
have
up
to
the
go to the,
difference.
right, so you would go to a increase, a 0.5%, but then you would give property owners actually a break on their taxes. So,
Where that works real well are the communities that are recipient communities. For example, Erie County is a recipient community. They generate approximately 35% additional sales tax dollars on a dollar of value because they're a destination county with Kalahari and Cedar Point. So in theory, if you lower property taxes and raise sales taxes, the residents go for that because a good part of their sales tax are being generated from people coming into their community rather than their own residents. And that scenario usually works well there. And the taxpayers benefit from, in the end, by raising taxes, a decrease overall in taxes. But we're a donor county right now, and we're running about 0.87 with the last reports, which is indicative of money leaving Lorain County rather than coming into Lorain County for expenditures. So that scenario may not play out as well in Lorain County, and then of course with the schools looking for the additional inside millage, I think they would invade the 10 mills real quick.
right, the only way we could do it is actually if we can keep the inside millage.
Mhm.
And I think the only way we could do that is by passing a resolution every year saying that we weren't going to collect that money. That way we could keep the rights to the inside millage.
Yeah, as long as we maintain the rights to that inside millage. Just for clarification for the folks out here, the inside millage is an unvoted tax that was passed by the state legislature eons ago.
Right.
And then they set the cap at 10 mills for what we call the inside millage, but it's the 10 mills limitation on unvoted tax, which they see on their tax duplicate. The other issue is that the state has routinely put unfunded mandates under our small share of the inside millage. We are 88 counties in our percentage of the inside millage with respect to local government, and then they loaded on veteran services on another unvoted mandate where they said that veteran service, we would levy a certain tax on the inside millage.
But there isn't any.
There was no inside millage left because they had a 10 mills limitation on the inside millage. So therefore, that became a drain on the general funds millage because there was no available millage to levy.
Right.
And that's where the veterans keep thinking that they're bringing in all this money and they're not using it, but essentially there is no millage coming in for the veterans
Correct.
themselves. It's
Had-
just general fund money, period.
Correct. Had there been availability under the 10 mills cap, the commissioners could have levied that for veteran services in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code,
Right.
but there was no room under the 10 mills. They put that in there, but they did not raise the 10 mills cap. So therefore, there was no room to levy the tax.
They should have made it a 10.5 mil with a half dedicated to veteran services and. it
Or
would've
up
been
to.
done.
Or up
Right.
to. Does that sound fairly accurate, Counselor?
I'm done with my report, by the way, Tom.
Oh,
So
I'm
you
sorry
can go,
to
no,
interrupt.
go ahead, I'm done with my report.
No, I just
I
wanted
didn't know
to
if you were
talk to
going
Jer-
into something of your own, so.
No, no report on that. You'll have the numbers for us next week then?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and go back to the resolution on that as far as for the prosecutor and for the domestic relations. It was removed so we could put both of them in as one, correct?
No, it was one more discussion on where we were gonna get the money from. We know we're
Okay.
gonna have cuts coming, and as Commissioner Kokoski suggested, whether or not we're gonna talk about the sales tax, we have to have a cut process in effect
Correct.
to make up the shortfall, so I think we should do it concurrently to give us the option, and the taxpayers the option where they're gonna support county government to whatever degree of services they'd like to have. But in the case of statutory, with the prosecutors and domestic relations court, it's a total of about $36,000 in change that I think are statutory services that need to be provided, especially in the case of victims. And we can bring them both up again if you want another clearer explanation. That was my motion. We need to do them separately, those do different
Yes.
offices,
Yeah.
because one is
Yes.
prosecutors and goes one to the vote.
And I can read them both separately. I mean, if you want to hear what we're doing.
So I think we're in the discussion process now.
A nod of the head would be sufficient for me. Do you have funds in your current budget to pay for it? Domestic?
This comes specifically, your match comes specifically from the general fund appropriation by the commissioners. Okay?
You have to come up,
Come on, Dennis,
Dennis.
so
Sorry.
they understand that.
I mean, do you want me to read this resolution how it's stated? I mean, you can-
Do you want her to read the resolution?
Yeah, go
while
and read the
talking?
resolution with the prosecutors, then we'll go into discussion with him explaining.
Authorize the filing of a grant renewal to the Attorney General's Office for the Victim Witness Program administered through the Prosecutor's Office. Said grant is effective October 1st, 2011 through September 30th, 2012. $100,505 for one full-time victim advocate and two part-time victim advocates. Request for Attorney General's Office is in the amount of $75,379 with a local cash match from the County General Fund of $25,126. Upon acceptance of the grant application by the Attorney General's Office, the cash match will be paid to the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office. Also, $7,194 from State Victims Assistance Grants does not require the match.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion.
Mr. Williams, your question again to the county prosecutor.
Just going back to your your funds or your budget, do you have money in your budget to cover the 25,000?
No.
No. And you started going into an explanation when we didn't have you.
Right now, we can make it to the end of the year. You were
Right.
asking where's the money gonna come from. I assume that meant because our fiscal year goes from January to
Right.
December. This goes from September to October, or October to September.
Right.
And the point is that we can make it through this year, I believe, based upon the state continuing to pay us like they are, and with what we have as the surplus in there because of how they pay us, the money they give us on the grant, okay? So, but eventually, yes, this money would have to come out of the general fund and be transferred into this fund to continue to match.
Okay. Now, with that, next year, we're going to be looking at doing cuts, and everybody's on the board. Is it going to, the $25,000 would probably come out of your budget for next year, is what I'm assuming. I mean.
Well, I would think as comments at that time before the prosecutor speaks, though, this is going to be a total restructuring of government if we're looking for $5 million in cuts. So I think this will be probably near the least of the concerns. The match
Okay.
money is going to be actually the personnel that we're going to lose, and then how everybody's going to perform their mandatory duties.
All
Go
right.
ahead, prosecutor. That was my statement.
If you're talking about $5 million cuts, we're looking at drastic cuts, as I
Right,
told you
it's
before,
a total-
uncharted territory.
Right, it's an all, total change in how county government operates and what services, whether it's furloughs, shutting down the building a couple days a month, whatever it might be to make up those cuts. So,
Right.
We don't have that option now. How would we have that option in the future?
we do have that option. We can shut the building down. Everybody goes on a
Yeah.
72-hour pay scale for 2 weeks, and so we close 2
I
8-hour.
thought the civil service wouldn't allow for us to do that.
No, we can close.
Jim or Jerry, are we allowed to close the office or the buildings down one day a week?
Sure.
I thought civil service wouldn't allow us to do that.
Well, you
Would
actually
be a
didn't
plan
close the
into
building,
next
you didn't
year.
say anything about reducing the employees' hours, okay? There's two different
Well,
questions. Sorry.
We can do that going into the new year with a plan, though.
Can we
That would
reduce
adjust.
everybody's hours by one day a week?
Let me try to answer one question at a time. Can we do that? Some folks, yes, some folks, no.
Correct.
A reduction in hours could be challenged with the State Personnel Board of Review as a reduction in compensation with regard to job. And forced reductions are not allowable without cause under the Ohio Revised Code and the Administrative Code. If you did it, would people challenge it? I don't know. But it could happen. I'm sorry I didn't equate when you said closing the building to the employees, Commissioner. I thought maybe we had flexible days or something.
No.
I wasn't trying to be flippant with you.
Well, when I said we weren't allowed to, I was referring to civil service.
I didn't quite
Okay.
catch that. So that could present some challenges, but there are other employees that are under the same civil service requirements, classifications requirements that you could do that with. So you have a bit of a mixed bag, and then also I need to let you know we would have to also work with our union contracts with regard to temporary reductions in those. I don't think the challenges are something that we couldn't step to the plate and try to tackle. I don't want to make it seem like they're insurmountable barriers, but there are some challenges there.
Well, what would that be if our budget for personnel is about 22 million? If we close down the offices once a week, or
Well, once every 2 weeks, you're looking at saving 10% of payroll.
Well, remembering that, you know, I don't believe furlough days is in the new budget
Correct.
bill.
it is
So
not?
you do not have furlough days
No.
anymore. Okay, so the law, that was a temporary law. It
Right.
ends at the end of this
Right.
month.
Okay.
So you would, to be able to reduce like that, we'd have to look at under what particular guidance we were going to use, what regulation we were going to use to do that.
I
We
think
did,
that's something for our public discussion, if we're gonna have a discussion on the sales tax. I think that needs to be one of the items that we are clear on, because that would probably be part of what
well,
we
let
would
me-
have to do to make this budget, or this budget work, should the sales tax not pass.
Well, the thing about closing a particular day, places close for a day out of the week because they're saving cost of operations. If we close for a day of the week and we try to reduce a large group of employees, we don't generally save that much. It's better that we do layoffs and reduce the workforce and keep the place open, because our overhead to run the building is not that significantly different from the day it's closed to the day it's open. Are there some additional charges? Sure, but we still have to keep the building in a condition
That it's operable. But
that it's
also-
operable, so that the cost differential is not that huge on the operational cost of the facility.
My concern being though, Jim, in the layoff process, that we are basically at the bone now. Additional layoffs is gonna mean curbing of services. We
But
can
if
decide
you-
what we're not going to
but
do,
if
so we have
you-
to decide.
But if you reduce the hours, you're still at bone services. You got an hour of productivity is an hour of productivity. 10 hours of productivity from 10 employees is still 10 hours, or it's 5, if it's from 5, it's 2 hours. So if you look at it from a productivity standpoint, you still have the same issue. And it saves more money to do layoffs than it does to cut hours of current workforce, because you have benefits issues. So, clearly the more dramatic role, and I know it's a difficult thing for anybody to hear, and it's difficult for me to say, and I don't say it very cavalierly, is a additional reduction in forces, and you stretch the workforce to try to get the work done. But having 12 people in the boat that only hold 8 people starves all 12 people. And you're better off with 8 people trying to row the boat than you are 12 people that are going to sink the boat. You save more with reductions in force than you do reductions in hours. Unless you're running a massive factory where the operational costs of the facilities can be recaptured more fully, and we don't do that right now. And I'm sorry, there's going to be people that go out there again, and they're going to say all kinds of things about what I had to say here. They always do. But
Well,
that's
why
a
we're
reality.
discussing things, options. We gotta throw everything on the table at
But
this
that's a
point.
reality of economics when it comes to the type of work that we provide. We don't really see the savings there in that scenario.
Well, let me ask Dennis Will this question, because a couple of years ago, instead of taking the layoffs, you decided to cut the hours.
Yes, sir.
You were able to survive to a certain degree. I mean, it wasn't the best scenario, but if you had the option again, would you do it that way, or would you do the layoffs?
No, I would not reduce hours.
You would not reduce
We're
hours?
still trying to catch up now,
Yeah.
2 years later, and we're still suffering the impact of that. So no, I would not do that. But understand, when you cut personnel, as Mr. Cortez indicated, not as many things are gonna get done.
Right.
Right.
Not as many people are gonna get served. Not as many
Well,
cases are going to be handled.
That's what the voters and our constituents need to understand.
Okay.
Hi, Deb.
Hi. Also considers unemployment that goes along with that.
Right,
so-
carrying
Yeah.
costs.
Right.
Well, but the carrying costs expire over time.
A long time, unfortunately.
Lately, yes,
years.
I have to agree with you,
99
but
weeks.
I have to agree with you, but, it's a push-pull scenario, and the tough decisions got to be made.
I understand.
And then, of course, without being able to predict, is people re-enter the workforce and decrease the load on unemployment at times, too. So nobody has a crystal ball whether those folks are going to go back to work or not. But hopefully, we won't have to find that out.
And we have a motion on the floor. Can you call for the vote on the first one?
Mr.
Teresa?
Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Resolution
And then you
for
want
the
domestic
DR,
one?
please.
Domestic, yeah.
For Lorain County Domestic Relations Court funding of $32,669 requested from the Victim of Crime Act, State Victims Assistance Act grant. This is for the Voices for Children Coordinator, and it is in the amount of cash match of $10,890.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye. One thing I want to bring up too is just talking
Thank
with
you.
Mr. Cordez.
Thanks.
Thank you. We had a transit board in, a couple months ago?
The who?
Yes. Well, we had the
Transit
transit,
board.
we talked
Well,
about transit.
The transit.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Thought we
Yeah.
established something I didn't know about.
No. But they talked about we could actually cut the funding there from 100,000 to 50,000, and they could keep both routes by slowing it down. If we went ahead and did that, we would be able to maintain our federal grants for the transportation. If we make that cuts today, we can cover the cost for what we just gave out today. Would you be
Well,
willing?
this doesn't need to go out yet. I will consider that once we get through this budget process and figure all the cuts. How's that sound? Because we don't need this money. It's not dedicated.
Okay,
It's
that's
just by
fair.
resolution. There's no
That's fair.
expenditure at this point.
It's something that we definitely have to look at, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to look at everything, actually.
So I would suggest, as the three of us and with the budget director and the county administrator and Mr. Innes, of course, that we look at a structural.
And let me point out,
Yes.
with no disrespect to the courts or the prosecutors, that you can turn down that grant at the time it becomes available if you don't have the money. So that's something, that I know they're not gonna like to hear that, but.
You waited till they walked out of the room before you
No, they're
said
still
that.
here.
No,
They're back.
Dennis and
Dennis-
George are gone.
Yeah, but she's not,
Debbie's-
she's not
Deb,
as big.
Run
she's-
out, go tell them.
She's not as big as Dennis, and she don't carry a gun, so but I don't mean any disrespect to your programming, but the fact is, until you draw a grant, you can still not participate in the grant.
And we also have coming up, Captain Drozdowski was speaking the other night at the Farm Bureau about he's submitting another COPS grant that was,
I have
Jerry,
that
did he
in
say 2 or
possession.
3? Do we have that?
I have the letter. I'm waiting for all the paperwork to go along with it.
Okay, all right
so
then.
hopefully by
Also
next
talked
week.
about
Let's
where,
hope.
at the end of a couple of years, we're then responsible keeping those people as deputies. So again, those are the issues we're dealing with as we move forward.
Yeah.
Any more report, Tom?
I got to see domestic relations still here. I met with them a couple weeks ago regarding vehicles. And we talked about one of the vehicles has a stop sign welded on the bottom of the van. They were looking for a car, and they were looking for one car to transport individuals and another car for their officers to go back and forth. And we approved, I think, $1,500 for travel expenses for the one vehicle. We have vehicles, or violent offenders. Was that the appropriation that you had in today?
Come on up, Deb.
Getting your exercise today.
Didn't we have a bus or something we were gonna send there for transportation? Didn't we have a bus we were gonna send over there?
It was Victims of Crime was the match for today. It wasn't,
No.
Oh.
There was an appropriation for, or not appropriate, expenditures for travel for violent offenders,
Yes.
officers for.
yeah,
Right.
those are travel reimbursements.
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Now, you don't have vehicles for those officers, correct?
No, we do not.
You need 2 vehicles for them?
I think one of the vehicles might be used for them, but
Okay. I thought we
there
were
are
talking
other-
3 vehicles, 1 for transportation and then 2 for officers.
I think we were talking about Voices, or our in-home program,
Right.
which basically that keeps the kids out of the detention home. And they go and visit them at various places during the day to make sure that they're where they're supposed to be. So they monitor the children instead of putting them in the detention home. So and we currently pay mileage for those
I have a
persons.
question, Deb. Are there bracelets for youths like there are for adults?
There are, and we utilize those, and we've
Okay.
gotten those through various grants. What we're running into now is that you have to have a landline. And so fewer and fewer people are having
landlines,
landlines, so
okay.
now we're gonna have to look at an option that would be a GPS unit, which is going to be
Yeah.
more expensive. Hopefully there'll be federal grants out there for them. That's how we've gotten them in the past. So that's one of the programs.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
All right.
And that's one of the reasons sometimes they put kids on in-home detention on that particular program. Some kids they do get the ankle bracelets, but some kids just have to be monitored because they don't have a home phone, so we can't put the bracelet on.
Sorry, Tom.
No, that's fine. Actually, what I want to do is see if we could actually give 2 vehicles over to domestic relations to help with this. We talked to them before about it. I believe they wanted a Crown Vic for the
Any
cage.
vehicles that you have available, we would appreciate. We spend more on repairing them at this point than they're actually worth sometimes, I think. I think sometimes when we fill the gas tank, we've doubled the value of the vehicle, but
One of the vehicles, they would need to go through and have it caged. So I was looking at the Crown Vic that we have right now to give to them. The bus that we were talking about was with the veterans. They requested a new vehicle. They have a 2006 van with 150,000 miles on it. The veterans are having a hard time getting in and out of the van. So if they got a new vehicle, we could then transfer the bus over to them.
Transfer
So-
the bus to who?
Domestic relations, from veterans to domestic relations.
are we talking about a bus or a van?
I'm sorry, it's a 16-passenger van.
Oh,
So you won't
okay.
need you
Okay.
won't need your
No
CDL?
CDL, okay.
CDL.
I think you do for a
Excellent.
16-passenger. I'm pretty sure. Don't you, Cortez? Need a
Excuse me?
CDL for a 16-passenger van?
It would depend on what you're doing with the van. You don't need a CDL to drive a 100-passenger bus, but if you start transporting people in the bus, then you need a CDL.
So
So
that's what the 16 passenger is, would be CDL required.
if it would depend, again, on the usage and situations.
The veterans got through with it where they didn't need a CDL, so. Okay, 2 vehicles and then the Crown Vic for transportation.
Anything that would be available would be appreciated.
Okay.
Jim, do we have vehicles available in our fleet that we can transfer over to domestic?
Well, I mean, if the board wants to do that, the board wants to do that.
Can we look through an
The,
inventory of what we've got there, like see what they are before we transfer them over? No offense,
Thank you.
Deb.
No,
the, I know that I've been talking to Doug about that, and he's been pretty good about it. We've sent quite a few rundown vehicles that they've run down a little more, and so it has been a good cooperation, and if, I'm sure we can get one of those Crown Vics and get it over there. It's older, but it doesn't have a lot of miles on it. If you want to do that, well, I'll make it happen for you.
What's the other vehicles, though? We're talking about the Crown Vic, so what's that, 93 or 97 or something?
97.
I think it's about
50,000
97.
miles on it.
And the funny part is one of those vehicles that we kept clean and ready for business use in case we had things that were happening. I'm sorry to tell you that we haven't used it very much, fact, because we haven't had a lot of that going on. I'm hopeful the future will be brighter, but we can come up with something in the future when we need to deal with that. I think we can transfer that over there if they want to cage that. But as far as a passenger van, and that's going to become a little bit more challenging. And I got to tell you, we still got a problem in weights and measures with
Yes,
regard
they
to a
need a
vehicle
pickup
and
of
weights and
some sort.
measures. And I did talk to Doug. I heard you guys talking a little bit about the bus. I did talk to Doug about using one of the transit buses, but they're just not situated enough to be able to provide the correct transportation service. So we did have that conversation a
Security,
while
you mean?
back. Well, caging them and the size of them and so forth. He and I have brainstormed on many occasions with regard to possible solutions, and that one really came off the table. So I wish I could help you there with that. But I think we can do the Crown Vic, as Commissioner suggested. As far as the van and their other needs and the needs in weights and measures, this is what happens when you don't buy replacement vehicles under your capital replacement and obsolescence plan.
Right.
And I'm not saying that to the board for any particular purpose other than to say it to the people out here. We're talking
So the
about
public
budget cuts,
understands.
tax cuts. We got roof issues, parking deck issues, we got falling apart fleets of cars, we have, and the list goes on and on. One time, you can delay this for a while and get delay all the one-time expenditures, is what I'm trying to say here, I'm babbling a little bit, but it catches up with you. And I know the Sheriff's Department is suffering significantly under that same scenario with respects to a responsible fleet of vehicles.
They just had one go through this week, a truck, I thought.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not only that we need deputies out there, we need something to put the deputies in when we have them out there. He's not here to speak for that, but I'll speak to that. I know he's been extending the fleet further and further, and I was here back in the 90s when those guys were driving. They didn't have a stop sign welded on it. They were using their feet to stop the car.
Fred Flintstone.
It was pretty bad. They were buying obsolete vehicles from the state highway patrols they would no longer allow their people to use. That's what we were buying. That's terrible.
That's bad.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Respondents?
Move the reading be waived.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Public comment.
Anyone wishing to address the board this morning? Hi, Shirley, you've been waiting there patiently.
Shirley R. Johnson, Oberlin. I'm not going to ask you for any money. I'm going to tell you about a free program called Prisons for Profit, which is the discussion of prison privatization. And I think it's something that not only the commissioners and other officials, but the people in the community should go to or listen to, because state legislators are considering a proposal to privatize and sell up to 6 Ohio prisons. While prison operators promise states cost savings, various studies have called into question whether privatization saves any money at all. In addition, research has shown that private prisons have higher incidence of assault, resist transparency and accountability, and increase recidivism, and avoid paying taxes to local communities. And I think some of the this program is being sponsored by an organization called People for Effective and Safe Prisons. And it's a panel discussion at Lorain County Community College Spitzer Conference Center, room 211, on Wednesday, June 22nd at 7 o'clock. I think I hope that some of the questions that will be raised there will be other things are being considered for privatization, just as you have been considering privatization of your custodial staff. And I think some of the questions that may be raised are ones that should be considered in any discussion of any privatization of any service that is offered. Thank you.
Very good, Shirley. Actually, we went over some of that at the Commissioners Association meeting last week, along with the Turnpike. And actually, I had to leave a meeting a couple weeks ago to chair a committee. We did it by phone that morning, conference call. And discussion brought up, same thing with the privatization of the Turnpike. We weren't able to get anything from the full board to support not leasing or selling the Turnpike, but our executive board asked the state Senate to add language to their part of the budget bill that would require, prior to going out for a request for proposals, and only the Office of Budget Management and the governor approving any type of sale and or lease, that would have to go back to the state legislature prior to an RFP going out, so everybody at least was on the same page. So it wasn't everything we wanted to stop it, but it was at least a part that can be discussion prior to it going out for RFP.
Well, I know that there have been some of these discussions, but the fact of the matter is they have not been backed by many of the kinds of studies that are mentioned in this paragraph that I read you, and that's true of other kinds of services too. I want to say that as I was sitting there, I have many other things I'd like to say about some of the discussion you were having. I was going to say I'm not going to ask you for money. I'm willing to pay more money in taxes because of the discussions I've heard here. But I'm a little bit unhappy about the one I just heard, and I don't want to raise many questions about it because I've got to get home to another appointment. But I think that there's some issues there about, particularly serious issues about dropping property tax and only having sales tax, and the whole question of fair taxes. Of course, I don't think counties can do anything about income tax, but I think that some of that is part of that kind of discussion needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Mr. Challenger?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Mike.
Mr. Cortez, Mr. Ennis, Ms. Upton. I want to thank the Commissioners for sponsoring a energy efficiency seminar, which is going to be held in the Transportation Center on Thursday, June 23rd. The Commissioners are hosting this event with the Lorain County Growth Partnership. And what's nice is that in addition to this meeting where First Energy representatives will be on hand to discuss their energy efficiency programs and incentives, which includes rebates for lighting and motors. We did a mass email invitation to this event 2 days ago. We've already received over 40 people that wanted to attend the event. And the people that are reserving reservations include large businesses, small businesses, electricians, and building owners. So I just want to say thank you to the commissioners for hosting this event, and I do have some flyers for anyone who is interested.
It starts at what time?
Oh, there's 2 times. Thank you, Commissioner. The first is at 10 in the morning, and the second meeting will be at 2 in the afternoon.
Does it have a date?
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
June 23rd, all right.
And what, in addition to First Energy representatives being available to discuss the program, we've had some local supply houses that are supporting and sponsoring this event. And they include Sandusky Electric, Superior Electric, Wolf Brothers Supply, and Leff Electric Energy Solutions. So these companies will have table displays there that will highlight some of the products that will be eligible for those incentives. And I encourage everyone here to attend.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioners, one piece of that I'd like to ask you about, and I did forget about it in my business, is the July 27th meeting, potential having it out at the college.
Oh, yeah.
I received Commissioner Williams' response, but I have not received a response
You
from.
got mine.
Did I get yours
okay.
also?
Yeah, you should have got mine.
Commissioner?
sent
I'm
it back
okay,
to
I'm
Sandy,
okay with
didn't you?
that. As long as it counts towards one of our meetings, I'm okay with that.
Well, it'll be in Elyria, but it'll be out at the college, and we have to meet in the county seat, and we've discovered that some time back. But we'll make sure you sit on the portion of the college that's not in North Ridgeville, and
Yeah.
I think we'll be, I think we'll be fine. It is, I think it's going to be a really great meeting. It's the 10-year anniversary of our collaboration on GLIDE, which from GLIDE evolved the Entrepreneurial Center and the Innovation Funds and the Edison Center designation and et cetera, and they have offered to host us and go through the incubators and do all that as part of our meeting out there. I just need to confirm that with them for a specific date. So July 27th, if Madam Clerk, if we don't have anything that would interfere with that, would that work well?
Not as of right now, other than the discussion we just had about the sales.
That's
tax.
what I
That
was-
would have to be the day, and we'd have to start hearings
Right.
and stuff, so.
We could do additional hearing in the evening.
We
for
always
that.
have in the past.
Yeah.
We have, but it's as an informal hearing, because you have to have
Okay.
2 as your regular board day, so.
Well, actually, that might not be a bad idea to have it at the college where there'll be a lot of college, hopefully, students that might want to ask questions and get informed about the sales tax issue.
Okay, I'll see what I can put together. But I think it'll be a great opportunity to see how far the collaboration has advanced and the tremendous benefits and dividends that have been paid to the residents of Lorain County. Because they're actually going to walk you through, they'll do the video shoot for our meeting, and they'll take you through, and the taxpayers get to see the inside story, which is something we give them statistics and facts and things like that, but they really haven't been able to explore the inner sanctuary, and I want them to do that too. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Mr. Carney?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Just wanted to add one item to your concerns on your vehicle situation. NWACA has a 5310 program. I believe it's under the Livable Communities program that's called the Specialized Transportation Plan. And you need to be listed in order to participate with a letter of intent, and the applications would be probably an October deadline. My contact person that's involved with that, we were successful in getting the Senior Citizen Center in Ridgeville a van. Handicap accessible, it's about a $36,000 vehicle.
We also got one in Lorain a few years back too, didn't we, Ken? Didn't the City of Lorain Senior Center get one also?
I know Craig Fulton was trying to get one, but his application process was a little,
Okay, if it, all right, I know they applied then.
bingo doesn't count. Transportation for senior citizens doesn't include that. So, and that's what failed Craig. So what we're interested in is senior citizens on this concept of applying for that, and that works very well. But you need to know the list of the deadlines, and the deadline to apply would be October, but you need a letter of intent. By the way, I contacted your veterans person that was here last year. I gave him all the information. I don't think he applied, but what can you do?
Yeah,
So just thought I'd mention that to you.
appreciate that.
Contact person in NWACA would be Colleen Donnelly.
I know her.
Yeah, so do I.
Hey, Ken, you probably said something that you didn't want to about the bingo. I'm going to give you an opportunity to apologize to the seniors on that.
Pardon me again?
The bingo comment. You want to apologize to the seniors?
Craig's mother applied for this van through NWACA, and he failed in that because he listed that action as a use of the van. That's voided. It cannot be used for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it failed.
All right.
Anyone
All right.
else wishing to address the board? Motion to move an executive session is outlined by the county administrator and county prosecutor.
And second?
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.
How about a little trash talk about Lorain County Solid Waste Collection Center in Elyria? The Collection Center makes it easy for Lorain County residents with ID to get rid of stuff you don't want going into a landfill. Stuff like hazardous waste, acids, household bleach, oven cleaners, antifreeze, paint, herbicides. Take it to the Collection Center. It's a drive-through, so it's easy to get rid of scrap tires, even if they're on the rims. The Collection Center also takes e-scrap like computers and monitors, circuit boards, microwave ovens, smoke detectors, even household TVs up to 27 inches. No console models, fluorescent lights and ballasts, reference materials and books, fire extinguishers, all kinds of stuff. Drive through, drop off. Just don't bring curbside recyclables, explosives, medical waste, radioactive materials. For what's accepted and not accepted, visit loraincounty.us/solid waste. The Collection Center near Big Lots at 540 South Abbey Road in Elyria is a service of the Lorain County Solid Waste District, the Department of the Lorain County Commissioners.
The evening sky is a crowded place, overflowing with thousands of voices and sounds sent swiftly but silently at the speed of light. From places far and near, these invisible messages arrive at their destinations to be transformed magically by a wonder called radio. 2 million people around the world enjoy this wireless window to the world, and they're called amateur radio operators, or hams. This is their story, the fascinating, fun hobby and public service of amateur radio.
This is W2LI, please copy 2A, Northern New Jersey, QSL.
QSL, near 2 Alpha, Northern New Jersey, we are 2 Alpha, Ohio, 2 Alpha, Ohio.
Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby and public service, enjoyed by people from all walks of life. Men, women, young and old, all share a common love of communication.
7-8 signals from both of you, and could copy you 100% all the time, so the band was kind of
Many enjoy casual conversations with others across the country or around the world. Today, amateur radio is closely linked to computers, connecting keyboards and PCs to radios in a variety of ways. The history of amateur radio dates back to the earliest days of radio itself. Shortly after Italian wireless experimenter Marconi transmitted the Morse code letter S from England to Newfoundland in 1901, amateurs began trying out the exciting new medium. Early radio communications was by Morse code, with messages sent by crude spark-gap transmitters. Amateurs built their own versions of these simple telegraphy sets and continued to experiment with new circuits and antennas, setting records for longer and longer communication distances. From simple crystal sets in 1906, radio technology continued to advance. In 1912, Congress passed the first laws regulating radio transmissions, and by 1914, radio hams had established a network of stations to relay messages from coast to coast. Later, experimenters added voice to radio transmissions, and by 1927, specific frequencies were assigned to radio amateurs, who by this time were licensed with specific personal call signs.
Amateur radio truly began progressing to a point where communication worldwide could be maintained once we had the invention of vacuum tubes. High-power amplifier tubes such as this HF100 and as this IMAC T50 truly provided a means for amateur radio operators to make contact with stations in far distant lands on the other side of the earth.
Amateur radio operators come from all walks of life: housewives, students, missionaries, movie stars, and just plain folks. They're all ages, all nationalities, and income levels. Radio hams are licensed by the U.S. government after passing a multiple answer examination covering rules, radio theory, and operating practices. Study guides are available that include a pool of questions from which actual test questions are selected. No previous radio or electronics experience is necessary. Most amateur radio operators set up their own home stations. Some enjoy using voice, while others use Morse code or digital modes, and some even use amateur television. Bruce Thorne, KE8TI, shows the main elements of a basic ham radio station.
This is an example of a typical amateur radio station. It consists mainly of the transceiver, which is a combination transmitter and receiver, and most of the amateur transceivers today are powered with 12 volts, so you need a power supply to convert 110 volts into 12 volts. You also have an additional speaker, which is an accessory, but it improves the sound of the transmission a great deal. There are also people who communicate with Morse code or CW. And also people use microphones as well. Then a clock is also needed because everybody works on coordinated universal time, which is equivalent to the old Greenwich time. Many hams today also connect their computer to their station and work with digital modes. This particularly is a mode called PSK31, and you communicate through the radio with your computer. Also, the computer is used for logging contacts, which makes paper obsolete and improves the consistency of the station operation. And of course, the final element in an amateur station is the antenna. And the antenna can be as simple as a homemade wire antenna or as involved as a multi-element commercial aluminum beam. And that completes your station.
You could take ham radio anywhere with you, portable or mobile. If you want to talk around the world, it's very simple. You just mount a radio inside your vehicle, such as this one here, and a fairly simple antenna on the back of the vehicle will let you talk anywhere in the world.
We're here at Chagrin Lagoons Yacht Club, which I'm a member, and we also have a amateur radio club here, which has about 60, 70 members. Most of them are husbands and wives. The reason for the success of this club is that amateur radio goes with boating. And when we're traveling, we pretty much know where some of the other hams are, when they're expected back, what they're doing, all by way of amateur radio.
Well, there's one other way to enjoy ham radio, and that is use it while you're flying. With this handheld transceiver, it's a 2-meter transceiver, When I'm up in the air, say at 5,000 feet, I can see much farther, and therefore I can transmit much farther. So it's a lot of fun flying and using ham radio at the same time. Or you might just want to take your radios up, and away in hot air balloons. Dan Greathouse, N8 NBC, keeps in touch with his ground crew via amateur radio, using a handy talkie.
Okay, I'm going to call on the other one and tell them we're going to be on 144.34 here. Chippewa Lake, that's Chippewa Lake, Joe.
Okay, that's the shoreline with the boats on there.
Roger.
Dan also supplies interesting aerial views while gliding through the sky at about 3,000 feet by using an amateur television transmitter. What he sees from above is relayed by ham TV to other amateur operators on the ground. Ham radio is enjoyed the world over. Each country has its own international call sign prefix and licensing procedures. Many foreign radio operators use English, so it's easy to get to know them and learn their way of life. The Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan in southern Asia is one of the most exotic countries where amateur radio is found. An international group of radio operators visited this fascinating land, where they met local operators and put this rare country on the air for other amateurs to contact. It was an unusual opportunity for a people-to-people exchange with amateur radio, the common bond.
Look over here, Bhutan, downtown Thimphu, Bhutan. Look at that view and the mountains. You can see the Himalayas and the snow in the background. We're really here doing A52A. Isn't that neat?
This is kind of the culmination of it all. I mean, we have been, if you stop and analyze it, what we've been doing is bringing some culture of the outside world, amateur radio and the internet and those kinds of things to the people of Bhutan, and now they're repaying us and bringing us some of their culture, and I think it's a great swap. I plan to take this home with me and wear it proudly on certain occasions.
Radio contacts between the U.S. and England are common because there's no language barrier.
Amateur radio is a wonderful way to meet people all around the world. Now here's King's Lynn. This is an ancient town. All the traffic into the town passes through this gateway, which was built in 1520. From my home here in King's Lynn, England, I've made friends with people in many countries, including, of course, the United States. In fact, I've been keeping in close touch by ham radio with my friends in Ohio since about 1970. They've been over here to visit us, and we've been over there to visit them. You can see that ham radio really shows what a small world it is, and it's a hobby that can be enjoyed by people everywhere.
When emergencies strike, radio hams are ready. This public service tradition is the serious side of amateur radio, in addition to being a fun hobby. When normal communications fail, hams are ready to offer their services, as they did when Hurricane Ophelia hit the eastern coast of North Carolina in September of 2005.
This is Whiskey 4 Romeo Juliet Foxtrot net control for the North Carolina Tar Heel Emergency Net. This net has been activated in response to Hurricane Ophelia, which is currently off the North Carolina coast.
Well, the main function is backup communications in case the telephone systems go down, or the two-way radio, satellite phones, whatever they have in management. Our traffic here has been mainly information type traffic, where we would hear information such as a power outage that would occur, and we would immediately relay that to emergency management. And that was our function, vice versa. It goes either way. Ham radio operators working in our area, a lot of us are engineers, and we have built the antennas to stand a Cat 5. We've got strong coax. Our towers are very, very strong. This thing's not going anywhere. Our radios are solid. We do have backup power. We've got backup to the backup power. So we are in good shape. We have plenty of HF communications. And I really believe that we could take a Cat 5. We've never been down. We are 100% up at all times. our communications has never failed. And so as some other folks have so nicely put it into a phrase, we are hard, fast, and fail safe. So we are always up. Other communications, and I spoke with management just day before yesterday, one of the county coordinators, who I reminded him of in '99 when their satellite phones went out, and he kind of looked and said, yeah. I said, we were it. And so we were the communications, and so we're kind of pleased with that. We really are.
Seeking Field Day, Seeking Field Day. This is Kilowatt 8 uniform, Tango Tango, Field Day.
Each year, radio hams across the country conduct an emergency drill called Field Day. For 24 hours, operators set up temporary communication command posts, using portable generators or batteries to power their radio equipment. This station used solar power for its 5-watt transmitter. Shelters are often tents or mobile homes, and temporary antennas are erected in simple ways. Operators test their communication skills by exchanging messages with other Field Day stations. Some use voice, while others use digital modes with computer keyboards or Morse code keys. Participating radio clubs are ranked according to their ability to handle large numbers of messages over the continuous 24-hour drill. It's a fun exercise, but also one with a serious side, preparing for a real emergency should it come. The International Space Station symbolizes how the amateur radio service operates in the space age. Many astronauts are also licensed radio hams who operate while in orbit. They frequently contact students back on Earth, including those at the Gilmore Academy.
Hi, my name is Ken Kane, and my call sign is KG8DN. I'm a brother of Holy Cross and a teacher of physics here at Gilmore Academy in Gates Mills, Ohio. I have been moderator of the Amateur Radio Club here at school for a number of years. We help our students get their licenses, their technician licenses mainly, and then they end up doing activities. And recently we talked to the International Space Station by a direct radio link using our 2-meter equipment and a satellite antenna that we built. For that purpose, Caroline Greco, our club president, was our net control operator at the time, and we had 10 students from the lower, middle, and upper schools at Gilmore who participated as questioners for the astronauts. So they enjoyed seeing amateur radio in action, and they had the pleasure of talking to the astronaut and receiving his answers. So we've enjoyed using amateur radio in a number of ways at Gilmore, and we hope that you and others that are interested in amateur radio will look into getting your own FCC license and talking to the world.
Hi, my name is Alex Alshore, and I'm a student here at Gilmore Academy in Gates Mills, Ohio. I recently received my ham radio license, and I'm very excited to open up to the world of ham radio. My school is quite famous for recently contacting the International Space Station, and now, with my recently acquired license, I'm looking forward to setting up my own station and exploring all the great facets of amateur radio. It's a great hobby, and I'm very, very interested to continue it.
Each year, 25,000 radio hams from around the world gather in Dayton, Ohio for their Hamvention. It's a place to meet and greet friends, some of whom met on the shortwave bands. There's a lot of new radio equipment on display, a massive radio flea market where hams sell their used equipment. It's a good place to get that extra piece of equipment you couldn't afford new. There are forums, food, and much more. And hams are always willing to talk about their favorite hobby.
And my very, very favorite mode is Morse code. It's the original digital mode, and one of my favorite things about it is it breaks all the language barriers. You don't necessarily have to know English to talk to people all over the world, and you can do it with rigs you can build yourself, which you can't really do with voice rigs. People build rigs in Altoid cans and just throw up a long wire and you're on the air. So it's a fun, cheap, inexpensive way to get on the air, and it's great for beginners and kids especially because they can build a rig themselves in an evening or a weekend with their grandfather or their father and get on the air and have a lot of fun.
My dad was my prime influence in getting my license. He had been a ham since he was about 15 years old, and you know, all the time when I was little he'd get me in kids contests. He would just saturate me with information about ham radio, and just took it right on me, and I got so interested in it that I said, Dad, I want to be a ham too. So he started teaching me code when I was 5 or 6, and we worked out to learn all the theory things about ham radio, and here I am today. I'm 15, and my call is K3000.
The Young Ladies Radio League is an international organization comprised of women from all over the U.S. as well as countries all over the world. And there's a lot of things we do to let women know about the hobby. We have contests that the women can participate in. There's also contests. Our most popular one is the YLOM, where the women call the men and the men call the women, and get QSL cards for contests. And we also provide scholarships for the young ladies who are interested in going to engineering field. We also provide our publication via Braille or on tape for our members who are, who are blind. So we try to approach every aspect of the hobby. We have women's interested in satellite communication, digital communication, VHF, HF, contesting, just about anything you're interested in. And one of the unique things about YLRL is we have the women perspective. Even though it is a male-dominated hobby, it's a family that the whole family can do, because we have both young girls and boys involved in it. We have women involved in it and men. So it's truly a family hobby that everyone can do, everyone can enjoy, and everyone has a lot of fun with.
Dee Logan, a veteran ham radio operator, has helped dozens of persons enter the ranks as operators.
What you've seen in this video gives you a good cross-section of the wonderful world of ham radio. I hope it answered your questions. I've been a ham for many years, and I will tell you that people from all walks of life are in the hobby. It's terrific to have friends around the world, and I hope you're interested enough to follow through. Actually, a lot of ways of doing that. You can go to an established ham who is licensed, who can answer some questions. You can go to a radio club, which might offer some classes that would help you prepare. Or you could study on your own, as many people do. There are a lot of good references available. One of the ones that we use is this one called Now You're Talking. This is published by the American Radio Relay League, the national organization of hams, and it contains everything you need to prepare for the FCC entry-level technician license. You'll find a lot of things in here that will answer a lot of your questions, including a question pool synopsis. So every question on the examination is drawn from the question pool, which is in the book. So really there are no surprises when you take the license exam. You can find these reference books perhaps at your local library. You can find them at a local retailer perhaps, or you can write to the American Radio Relay League, which has books available. This is a list of publications that they have, and finding them is very easy if you can access the internet. So it's www.arrl.org. You'll find, when you go on that website, a lot of your questions answered and information that's available that you can write for. There are a lot of amateur radio magazines available. Sometimes you can get them at a local bookstore. Typically, QST is published by the ARRL. That's the main journal. Also, there is CQ and World Radio. These are magazines that cover the wide world of ham radio, and they're quite interesting. I hope you will find amateur radio to your liking, and if you at some day get your license and get on the air, I look forward to hearing you. It's a wonderful hobby, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it as much as we do. As we say in ham radio, 73 and good luck.